Today, we're dealing with the whole notion of parts and I want us to think about it in a different way. Sometimes they're saying, well, we have to have an anthem that's written in parts, but many things that we sing from our hymnal could be considered a stepping stone to part singing. And I'm not saying singing the soprano and singing the alto along the way, but see what's in your own hymnal that could teach those things. And I think sometimes our children have trouble singing in parts because we have not prepared them well enough. And probably the biggest preparation I think they need for part singing, we talked about it in some of the other classes, this whole notion, we sometimes call it inner hearing or audiation, that they can hear a melody, in their head, or at least hear a pitch, And that is critical for this whole notion of singing in parts. So on the cover of our little handout for today, I put there that unison singing is at the core of everything. And I had one of my first adult choirs that they didn't sing an SATB part, it wasn't real music, because singing two-part mixed or even unison was, that's for kids. And I think we should all be singing unison sometime and two-part our whole lives, because if we can't do that well, there is no way we can do the other things. And if I had to put three categories where we branch out from unison singing, the first one would be antiphonal singing, just the back and forth. And there are many forms of antiphonal singing that are possible, canonic singing as well. And then the third category, 2- and 3-part singing, where they're actually all independent separate parts. Sometimes they travel together, and sometimes they come to a point in conversation with one another. So I kind of made this into, the prologue says, when learning and singing in parts, sing without the piano or accompaniment assistance, because the more we stay with the piano or an instrument, the more we enable them not to be able to sing independently. And if that's our goal, to be independent if we're going to sing two parts, that would be a real help. And then when teaching part singing, intentional repetition and reinforcement are critical. We may get bored, but the children will not get bored. Particularly if you're singing a canon. When I first started teaching, if we got through the canon, I would and I would quit. And I'd go well, that was silly. We probably needed to sing it 10 more times to make sure every child in the room, and that they would feel comfortable, and that we would get out of the competition mode, I got my part, to the part where we could actually sing it musically, and they were listening to each other rather than doing this, trying to block out all the other sounds in the room. And the other thing is, I think sometimes when we needlessly repeat anthems when we're rehearsing them, instead of saying, let's go to page 4, and this is what I heard you do for this particular phrase. Sing it for them. Have them diagnose or evaluate what wasn't great about it, so that they can then improve it. But if I would say, we've got more front row seats, come on up. And it's help yourself to everything that you didn't get all week over there. This notion of intentional singing, my smart learners get bored if they don't know why they're repeating something again. My slow learners repeat it the same way they did it the first time, and it doesn't get better again. And so be very, very precise. And you might say, you sang all of the right notes, but now we want to do something special with the notes. Or I would like to hear your D's or your T's, and give them something specific to concentrate on. And all of a sudden, it will happen. And then, you know what? We've got that. Can we add one more thing to the phrase? And each time, they are enhancing their musicianship or developing it, and they're bringing the music more to life with each repetition. And it's not mindless just to get it in our heads and memorized, but it's intentional so that we can make it better. So if we go to the very second, I think it's the second last page of your handout, it's page number 7. I just need to clarify for you that when I listed all of these different examples, for ways to develop part singing, I was not going to leave you sourceless. Okay, so I did abbreviations throughout where the pieces are listed, and these are the collections from which they come. There are two books in particular that I would commend to you, not because I wrote them, but because of the content. One of them is called Part Singing Global Style, and we'll do some examples from it today. There's a children's book, you get 15 anthems for $5, so we think it's a great deal. That's not me, I have to do this for the publisher, But anyway, and in the children's book, they only see their part. None of the accompaniments are in there. And I think it saves me so much time when I don't have to read through the extra staves. And even if if it's in two parts, and if one of the two parts sings if they sing in unison for a while before they go into two parts, we still do two staves all the way through, so they can keep tracking on the same stave, rather than saying, oh, now you're on this stave here, now you're going to have to go to the bottom one here. Let them stay on the same one as far as reading. The companion to that has everything else in it. And it's really like, for those of you who've been music education teachers in school, it's like Silver Burdette or Burkhardt and Winston, where you will see what the children see in their book with all of the lesson plan and teaching things there. And one thing that we thought was important, there's always a motivating thing, is how do you begin to introduce the piece, and then how might you introduce this particular concept of part singing along the way? It's one thing, I can do this, this, and this, but what's the sequential order, to do all that. At the back of the book, they included all of the instrumental parts for the percussion, for the handles. They did a whole thing on cymbals that you can reproduce. But I think the best part is, I forgot this was in here. They gave the two views of the hand signs. And I think it's good for us to look at, because we need to know what our children are seeing. And when they're flipping their hand or doing something, what does it really look like? And with each of the pieces, I mentioned the other day, I keep one of those, it's like a balloon globe in my room that's blown up, and it sits on a little pedestal. Every time we learn a piece from another country, we go to the globe to find where it is. And here they give that information, like they'll highlight on the map where the country is, and it'll give all of the phonetics and everything for the foreign language. So that relates directly to this, and then it's a new series that Morningstar is doing. In the first volumes are going to be on Advent and Christmas, and these are similar to that, but all of the children's materials are reproducible. And so what you get in each one of them is a text page. We're always sending home text, for them to review or memorize. And then you would get what we would call a melody page, where it just has the basic core. But then, if you can divide and all of that, you get the part arrangement to duplicate, and then you get the full score. And then what it does after that for the teacher, it gives you a whole lesson plan, plus anything else that you might want to work with. It has vocal technique issues, part singing issues, vocabulary, other learning activities. How do you teach the or for the drum accompaniment? What are your performance opportunities? What's the background of the text? Tell us about the music and all of those things. So it's all written out for you. So, end of commercial. But these are referenced in this handout. So let's go to page number 2, now that we know where all of those sources are. I said that one of the first branches of moving out of unison singing is to do antiphonal singing and unison material. Go to your hymnal, there will be great examples there. Rejoice, ye pure in heart, or rejoice, O pilgrim throng, whatever text you use along the way, it has that refrain. Rejoice, 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 give your thanks and sing. That's my first part singing experience. Group 1 sings, rejoice, rejoice, and then they both sing, rejoice, give your thanks and sing. The wonder of it is that it's one note, and the starting note of the second group is the same as the ending note. And that's critical, because once we move to another kind of integral thing, the starting note and the ending notes aren't always the same. So I would put that right away at the top of my list. It sounds so simple, but it's a big deal. And then from there, as far as antiphonal singing, if we go to the hymn tune Lost uns erfreuen, all creatures of our God and King, many other texts that go with it. If you get to that refrain, I'll be voice 1 and you'll be voice 2. Alleluia, 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 Alleluia. Then we all sing together. Alleluia. Now, this is much more challenging, not just for the second voice part, but for the first voice part. When the second voice part comes in, we've ended on the tonic, but we want to come in on fa. Fa's a tough one to come in on, but it's an exact repetition. And then for the first part that is singing, the second group ends on low do, and the new group has to begin on high do. We say, oh, how simple for us. That's a big deal, again, for our young people to do. See, if we want to move out of just that simple antiphonal kind of singing, we could move into the whole notion of call and response. And for call and response, we have some music in that genre in which you sing whatever the caller has said. And it's normally longer than a little phrase like this. We started the week with, come let us see, for now the feast is spread an African piece, and there you just repeat the entire sentence. But sometimes our responses are different from the call. We experienced that also this week, and all of these are listed in here. But when we did, wise children, go and praise the Lord, the caller was doing, lift up your voice and sing, rise children, go and praise the Lord. What did I then? Come on in. And if you want to grab anything that you don't have, you probably grab it for now. But it's the stuff in the first chair that we're looking at right now. Let's see, where was I? Why children do praise the Lord. The call part ends on low so, and now the response begins on me above it. So that's the interval of the sixth. And just log it in, that these are the things that we're going to be working with along the way. Sometimes in some of our pieces, you might get 2 different calls or 2 different responses. If you think about the folk song, swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. So we have 2 different endings there. And it's written right here. So the first one makes a perfect tonic triad. Do, mi, so, which we want them to know that chord structure. The second one, except for 2 notes, is exactly the same. So the trick will be, will they remember which one they are on? Will you remember? Swing, I gotta put it in the key, that's way too. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Easy for us. I wouldn't put these notes on the board for them, but I would teach it by rote in the tradition of the spiritual. If it became an issue, my first step would be, okay, first time we're going to sing it like this. And the second time we're going to sing it like this, and decide, nope, I'm coming back down. And that gives us enough to hang on to for that. Some of our hymns are inadvertently call and response. They weren't intended to be like that, but it depends on the text that we put with it. For the hymn tune, Arhidi Nos, Welsh folk song, sometimes we sing All Through the Night to it. Sometimes we sing For the Fruit of All Creation, Thanks Be to God. Sometimes we sing Go My Children with My Blessing, You Are My Own, as a benediction. This so la-ti-do, or excuse me, la-ti-ti-do, keeps coming back in 3 of the lines. Particularly for the fruit of all creation, the response is, thanks be to God. So you could have a caller do that first part and list what we are thankful for, and your whole choir sings, thanks be to God, and it'd be quite lovely. And guess what? All of a sudden my congregation understands what the text is all about. Instead of just singing through the line, through the next line, through the next line. Now, in this particular case, that call is interrupted by a third line of music. La, 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 la. Then we get back to the call again. And so it's not a big deal, we just let it happen and then come back to the call at the end. If you look on page number 2, I've listed lots of spirituals in the tradition that are in the call and response format. Go down Moses, hear the lambs are crying, oh, won't you sit down? If you do praise, praise, praise the Lord, praise God's holy name, Alleluia, little Cameroon processional, it has a response in there. We did the Rise Children earlier. If you go to the next page, I mentioned earlier that we can have the 2 different responses to the calls. We did Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. Some others in that category, we sang it at the first service. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, is the response. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. So first and third responses were the same, the middle one was different. All through this, we're just adding another layer of difficulty, and expertise on their part, in their part singing. You might experiment in number 3 on page number 3 with overlapping echo of phrases. Remember, for those of you here, when I said you are being invited to the best banquet ever, and sometimes the singers jump the gun and they don't let the person. That would be an example of an overlapping motive or phrase. We could also take example number 1 here, which, we had our 2 groups, rejoice, rejoice. Instead of just having this for 2 groups, as soon as this is done, insert the echo. Rejoice, 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 give thanks and sing. 1 note again, but just keeping track. And it sounds rather festive when you add that. Would you all 3 sing, and would you all 3 sing? When I do it, I have to always stop the word. You're going to hang on for the joy solo. Ready? And rejoice, 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 give thanks and sing. And that could be quite lovely. And that's their first desk chant also for church. And they just echo the congregation. None of them sing part 1. They all listen to the congregation for that. And how many of you know, I think it's in the New Baptist hymnal, or in many new hymnals, for Maundy Thursday, Jesu, Jesu, Philosophia, that's the same kind of principle as this. The refrain of that goes like this: Jesu, Jesu, fill us with your love, show us how to serve the neighbors we have from you. So with that opening phrase on Jesu, 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 but much harder than this one, because now we're starting on a different pitch along the rate. I'll be part 1 to be my echo. Jesu, 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 Jesu. And now we actually get a third harmony for 1 chord along the way. So you might want to experiment with that. In that preparation, praise, and proclamation handout you got the other day. There's that hymn of praise, Alabaré, in Spanish, which stretches, I will praise Him. Alabaré, 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 alabaré. And then going to unison, or we said they would harmonize in thirds. My young kids will not harmonize in thirds. My older kids will, but not the youngest one. But that's another example of that. Maybe the next category, and I'm going through all of these just to throw out ideas. You're probably saying, oh, I could do that with this hymn, or in my church we do this. The whole notion of overlapping phrases. For the hymn, come Christians join to sing. Come Christians join to sing. Alleluia, amen. Would you sing that with me, Anne? Come Christians join to sing. Alleluia, amen. Right now, I'll say, all the boys, or all the men today, all right? We're going to sing this, and when we get here, we're going to park, and you're just going to sing the next phrase in rhythm over it, okay? Ready to go, John? Come, Christians, join to sing. One note, and you just have to hang on to it the whole time. And it makes it a lovely sound. There are many hymns like that in our hymnal, you know. Look at those Alleluia hymns, you know. Jesus Christ is risen today. And hang on to that, Alleluia. If this first phrase before a repeated sentence phrase ends on the fifth, or the dominant of the key, you can get away with anything over here. If it ends on the third, probably not a good idea to try because you get too many dissonances along the way. Sometimes it can be really haunting for a hymn in minor. If you sing the early American hymn tune Jefferson, which I did list on there for the Advent text, come thou long expected Jesus. And then hang on to, that's the tonic note. Thus born to set your people free. And all of a sudden, it's not the pretty harmony here, but more mystical and a little bit more haunting along the way. So we're just going to keep going through this lesson and doing examples. The echo canon, in addition to the one we did the other day, maybe you all know, oh, every night, when the sun goes down, when the sun goes down. We've often done that in camp a lot. Would you like to join us? Please do. Just grab a chair there, and then you can pick up some handouts over there. Thank you. Sorry. So, and a lot of these echo canons, I would never teach them by putting a piece of music in front of the children. I would just do it first in call and response style. So whatever I sing, would you sing after me? Oh, every night, when the sun goes down, I'll teach the whole thing that way. Then the next go around, I'll do it like this. Oh, every night. And then you have to hang on. But I make it simple first, that they can just hear without them sustaining a pitch along the way. Or, the water is wide. The water is wide and I can't get it. Or many hymnals now have included Hal Hobson's Gift of Love, you know, and the same principle there. Sometimes we can go into another category where say sing in unison or speak in unison even and add an ostinato to it. So let's have fun since we don't have any rain and we would like a little rain to cool, water the earth. If you want to take a look, just a look at our little text change. Listen to the rhythm of the falling rain, watering the earth once again. And we're going to just do it like that to make it rhyme, okay? I'll go first. Listen to the rhythm of the falling rain.
Listen to the rhythm of the falling rain.
Watering the earth once again.
Watering the earth once again.
Put it all together and listen to the rhythm of the falling rain. Watering the earth once again. And what might it sound like if we just had a light tap going up at our person? Ready and go. Listen to the rhythm of the falling rain. Watering the earth you have a lift in your sound, but we're getting maybe the sound of the rain touching something on the earth. And then, if it's my first experience with kids, I just tell them, you know what, sometimes the rain sounds like this. Pitcher, pitcher, patcher, pitcher, pitcher, patcher. You know, just that light sound. Would you all be the pitcher, pitcher, patcher? Pitcher, pitcher, patcher, pitcher, pitcher, patcher, pitcher, pitcher, patcher. No matter what I say to you, you're never going to stop being the rain. Pitcher, pitcher, patcher, pitcher, pitcher, patcher. Okay, ready? And go. Pitcher, pitcher, patcher, pitcher, pitcher, patcher. Listen to the rhythm of the falling rain, watering the earth once again. And I was like, oh, and I think about this. And all of a sudden the rain does become a little louder. But you know, sometimes the rain isn't that little light, light touching sound. You go splish, splash, splish, splash. Say that one 10 times, and your mouth will go. But would you be that kind of rain? Splish, splash, splish, splash. Pitcher, pitcher, patcher, splish, pitcher, splasher, splish, pitcher, splasher. Listen to the rhythm of the fall. You got the idea? Okay, you're the splish, splash group. You're the pitcher, pitcher, patcher. Okay, ready? And go. Splish, pitcher, splash, splish, splash. Listen to the rhythm of the falling rain, watering the earth once again. We're creating a sound piece. We're not worrying about any pitches right now, which is very helpful. If we can't do the words independent, adding pitch will add a whole other level of difficulty. You know, but sometimes there's the car that goes by when it's raining and goes whoosh, like this. Okay, you're the whooshes right here. Whoosh and whoosh. And how about pitcher, pitcher, patter, splish, splash? Okay, ready? Here we go. Whoosh, whoosh. Listen to the sound of falling rain, watering the earth once again. And then I have everybody learn everything and then just keep turning it around so they can stay independent. If it's with my older kids and they say, oh, we know how to do that, I say, okay, when you finish your whoosh, whoosh, you hand it off to them after I get done with my 10. You hand off your pitcher, pitcher, patcher to them, and you're going to take from them splish, splash. All of a sudden, oh, the level of learning, concentration, and focus has gone way up. I use just a general text here, but you can do that with psalm text. Create a little picture of it. One of the psalm texts, I like to do it, and I wrote it out here, from Psalm 46. Though the mountains quake and the oceans roar, be still and know that I am God, is the main chant. But then another verse in there goes, the Lord of hosts is with us. The Lord of hosts is with us. The Lord of hosts is with us. And it just so happened that year when we were learning the speech choir thing, we were also singing Alan Poe's God is Our Refuge and Strength, which is the paraphrase of Psalm 46. So the second ostinato was, God is our refuge and strength, which is the rhythm of the opening line of that anthem. Kids go, oh, we know that one already. And we just layered it all together. And then when it came time to do the psalm in worship, I actually had the children in 3 stations around the room. And then the congregation basically gave a stereophonic effect. And a little bit of the feeling of, though the mountains quake, and that's the Lord of hosts is with us, or God is our refuge. And each one of them has a different character, and they're kind of immersed in all of that. So, and it's a fun thing for your kids to do in learning independence. And I would do lots of things like that before I went to lots of sung ostinatos along the way. But in our hymnal, as far as the sung ostinato, you can, and we have many hymns that are like this, you could choose one phrase of the hymn, if it works, you're going to have to test it out along the way, to be sung while the rest of the hymn is sung. The German chorale, Nun kommt der Heiligen Heiland, Savior of the nations come, was based on a chant prior to becoming a chorale in the church. And it just so happens that that sentence can be repeated over and over while the entire hymn is sung. And in this case, it makes sense textually, and it actually becomes a litany, because what happens in a litany? We say the same repeated sentence over and over, often with different petitions. So sometimes as you're working with the whole concept of melody and an ostinato for your part singing. Give it a reason though, a theological reason or a worship reason to do it along the way. So if you would sing for me that repeated sentence, it's Savior of the, I have no voice, I'm sorry today. Savior of the nations. Keep going. Savior of the nations, God. Savior of the nations, God. Virgin Son, make nations home. Marvel of all nations, God. That your just nations go. Savior of all nations, God. Like quite haunting if you didn't have a joker in front of you singing the tune. The other thing you can do then, add an instrument, because you know you're singing da 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 da. You're always coming back to the resting tone at the end of the phrase, and you could just tune that over and over in the background. It will add even more haunting character to what you are doing. So, one example there. How many of you sing the King? Oh, no, I forgot the words, the English words, but the Israeli words. Do you know this melody? I'll sing. Hi-da, hi-da, hi-diddy-da-da, hi-da, 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 hi-diddy-da-da, hi-da, hi-da, hi-da. Go look it up in the book, because it's way too fun to do. But King of kings and Lord of lords, glory, hallelujah. King of kings and Lord of lords, glory, hallelujah. I like the Haida one because it's one word, and that's the word that Haida, 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 Haida. You want to try it? Ready? And Haida, 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 Haida. And you might put it right in your eyes, so like Haida, Haida, Haida. And then here we go. Haida, 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 Haida. And that's the first half, okay, of this little hymn thing. The second half, Haida, 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 Haida. But I'm not going to ask you to do that right now. But once they know the whole thing, you could choose 2 or 3 notes to create an ostinato. Sometimes we created the first an ostinato on the basis of melody. For Savior of the Nations Come, it was the actual melody. Sometimes an ostinato, say, the bass part that could accompany it. So if you were singing, Haida, 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 one of the bass parts that would be traditionally done as far as an instrumental accompaniment, Haida, 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 Haida. Your choice. Take a bass part or take the melody. Who would, anybody? Okay, you're all the melody right now. That's like, and I'll take the bass part. I can croak that one out this morning. Okay, ready? Here we go. Haida, 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 haida. And for these initial ostinato, notice that I was just keeping the beat with it and not moving in sync with other things, because then they can hear their part is working for them. The text that I sing to that for worship is, love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and strength. Love, and then love the neighbor, your neighbor as yourself goes for the second half. But then I could use haida, haida, because now it's not interfering with the language, there. And if I'm going to create an ostinato like that, I try to always have different words so they're not drawn into the other text along the way. Some other examples, if you want to look in your hymnal at the Vesper hymn, it has a jubilate, 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 amen. That refrain can be sung as a canon. First of all, we'll talk about that later, but you could also create some ostinati to accompany it along the way. How many of you know the early Native American, many and great, oh God, are your works. It's just started coming into more hymnals alone. Ready and pray, talk on your works, maker of earth and the sky. Very rugged, and you can add a little tom-tom to it to accompany it. But if you don't have a tom-tom, your voices could sing the original language. Walk, walk, while the tune is being sung. And then that's simply a one-note ostinato underneath it to help the character of the piece. So even if they're not in your hymnal, you might say, oh, well, we do have this hymn in our hymnal that technique would work with. Okay. If you're going to start canons, do a speech canon first before you do a sung canon. We did that body, mind, spirit, voice. Helen Kemp's chant works as a speech canon, as a sung canon. What you just learned here a little while ago is also listen to the rhythm, listen to the rhythm, listen to the rhythm, listen to. And if you get that canon going really well, you have all of this articulate stuff going on. So 2, 4. Okay, group 1. Group 2, group 3, group 4, okay? Ready? And we'll do this as a speech canon. Listen to the rhythm, listen to the rain, listen to the earth, listen to the rhythm of the falling rain. Oh, water in the earth, oh, water in the earth, listen to the rhythm of the falling rain. Oh, water in the rain, oh, water in the earth. And you have to have a second, but you got the idea. And then, if you really want to challenge, instead of just speaking it, how about, when you do the first half of it, would you use your light vocal mechanism? Listen to the rhythm of the falling rain, watering the earth once again, okay? And now we're going to have pitch inflection going on as it goes around the rhythm. Ready? Go. Listen to the rhythm, listen to the rhythm, listen to the earth, listen to the rhythm, falling rain, watering the earth once again. Listen to the rhythm. You got the idea. And now it's getting closer to singing, isn't it? Along the way. Well, maybe, why don't we sing it? Listen to the rhythm of the falling rain, watering the earth once again. Wonderful, be great, ready and go. In your own register. Listen to the rhythm of the falling rain, watering the earth once again. Listen to the rhythm of the falling rain, watering the earth once again. You got that, and you just have to have a signal when you want to stop. But I wanted you to have the experience of going through the different processes of all that. You know, if you want, add 2 notes to it. I don't care, whatever notes you want. It's free for grabs right now. All right. So that is one way to get us into a sung canon. And if you're going to do a sung canon, I choose the shortest one possible to start with. Why does row, row, row your boat work so well as a rounder canon? Row, row, row your boat, 4 beats. Gently down the stream, merrily, 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 life is but a dream. So each of those little statements are only 4 beats long. The other day we did a canon, and it had even less beats than that. Christians sing on this glad morning, you will not take Deo, praise our Lord. Now it's more difficult vocally to sing than Row, Row, Your Boat, You Soar, but it's still the same brevity and easy to keep tracking. I mentioned in one of the classes, and I'm going to read this whole canonic experience, and I'll erase this for now. But to let your kids draw what the canon looks like for them as they're singing it. For example, if we were doing, listen to the rhythm of the falling rain, watering the earth once again. Doesn't mean anything to you, but it would mean maybe something to me. And then we're going to sing it again and just follow the map that you've recreated. Listen to the rhythm of the falling rain, watering the earth once again. Now we're going to sing it as a canon. But you're going to just keep reading your own part. Okay, this group is going to start, this group is going to follow. All the kids are working with their own individual maps. All of a sudden you take the competition element out of it because they're focusing on tracking. It's like music reading. Doesn't look very much like it, but it's a way to get us into that whole genre of notation and musical literacy. Does that make sense along the way with all of that? to do it, you'll save all that other time in trying to make it work down the road. Another way you can work with hymnal things for a hymnal is just choose one phrase of the hymn as your canonic example. For example, getting ready for Christmas or Advent, depending when you sing Joy to the World, it can be an Advent hymn because of the preparation emphasis in it, or a Christmas hymn. Would you all sing the first phrase of Joy to the World? Ready? Here we go.
Joy to the world, the Lord is come.
That's our canon, okay? Just that much. Now, we can start joy to the joy to the joy to the joy. And when you get to the end of the phrase, you just park on the last note, okay? Ready? And we'll be first, second, third, fourth, the switch run. Ready? And joy to the world, the Lord is joy to the world, the Lord is come. Did you notice the chords that happen along the way? They're very momentary, but that's okay. And it's one way just to do one sentence. Or the hymn, Lift Up Your Heads, sung to twirl. Lift up your heads, ye mighty gates. Any of you do that one in your church? Okay, let's sing it all together so we agree on the tune. And lift up your heads, ye mighty gates. Just like that one, it's just going the opposite direction. Lift up your, let's do it. Ready? And lift up your heads, ye mighty gates. Lift up your heads, ye mighty gates. And this one is a little bit harder because on fairly strong beat we have T and Do sounding at the same time. It's okay. Dissonance will resolve at the very, very end of it. So find those little things. Or you might take a refrain of something like, and make it a little bit longer, but you know, for the beauty of the earth, the whole thing can be sung as a canon. But if you go to the refrain, Lord of all, to thee we raise this our hymn, grateful praise. That could be done as a canon in the same way we did those. So take a look in your hymnal and see what's there for you. Category number 3 for canons and rounds at the unison. Look in your hymnal resource companion that might come with it for your church, and sometimes it will tell you which hymns are canons automatically. I list a couple of them there right now. Love consecrates the humblest act. It's the hymn tune 24. Love consecrates the humblest act, and goes on that way. Or the hymn tune Pro Nobis, which in hymnals occurs as an Epiphany hymn, as an Advent hymn, and as an Easter hymn. On Jordan's bank the Baptist cry, on Thomas that Easter day with joy was bright. That works as a canon throughout also. So look for those kinds of things. And then, if you really want to challenge your group, sing a canon at the 4th or 5th. Some are written out, I give you some of those, but I'm going to bring us back to that hymn, Savior of the Nations Come, that we did earlier. Savior of the nations come, Savior of the nations come, would be at the other pitch. You sing it in the original, and I'll echo it in the other key. Here we go. Savior of the nations come. And very haunting. Put both of them together, and it's your parallel part singing that. Savior, Savior, we'll take Savior down here, you all take Savior up here, and Savior of the nations come. We've just gone into the Renaissance and medieval times. Oh, this is really cool. Then add a little tom or a little percussion to it, and it will really add to it. Little simple things I hope are useful along the way. Sometimes we can put 2 or more melodies together. But the most famous example, I'm looking at page number 6 now, partner songs. The spiritual, all night, all day, angels watching over me, my Lord, fits beautifully with swing low, sweet didn't list the third one, and if you want to really be brave, add to it, chatting with the angels early in the morning. And fourth, off to go around, and you've got your anthem just by knowing three folk songs along the way. We experimented with singing phrases in canon, but sometimes phrases from two different hymns work together. We had joy to the world, the Lord is come. Lift up your heads, ye mighty gates. They could be sung at the same time, and all of a sudden you have melodies going like that, and it's pretty cool. You have a checkpoint in the middle of the unison, okay? So, would you all do joy to the world? And would you do it just with, and would you do with me, lift up your heads on this side? Ready? And here we go. 2, 3. Lift up your heads, ye mighty ones. That's kind of fun, and that would be perfect for Advent, a psalm response. Then we read the psalm or sing the psalm tone for the response, and then come back for the response again. So look for those kinds of things in your hymnal. Just kind of pulling out things off the list here. I listed under partner songs Yonder Come Day, and that's one of the anthems in over there. Did everybody pick one up this morning? And if you didn't, I will bring one. Oh yeah, because, so in taking a look at that particular anthem, you go to page number 4, and I do need to get a pitch. The main tune is sung by all voices at the very beginning. Yonder come day, day is the breaking. Let's read it together. Ready, set, sing. Yonder come day, day is the breaking. Yonder come day of my soul. Yonder come day, day is the breaking. Sun is rising in my soul. And here's the first partner song that goes with it. It says voice 3, but let's all learn it for right now. Yonder come day. Ready? And go. Yonder come day, yonder come day, yonder come day, oh my soul. Yonder come day, yonder come day, yonder come day in my soul. There's one more partner song that goes with it. It's voice 2 on page number 5. I alluded to it the other day. Yonder, for your crocodile mouths to sing it. Okay, let's read it together. And yonder, 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 oh my soul. Yonder, yonder, in my soul. Okay, those are the 3 essential ingredients of this piece. Okay, and then you can kind of build a piece. So. Who has the soprano part, or has that range today? Okay, 1, 2. All right, you're on for the yonder, yonder. Well, yonder come day. And we're going to take the original tune, okay? So the way we're going to start this, we're going to start by building it with count the melody, the one you're on, and then we'll add yours, and then we'll add the real melody at the very end. Praying go, yonder come day, yonder come day, yonder come day, oh my soul. Yonder come day, yonder come day, yonder come day in my soul. Yonder come day, yonder come day, yonder come day, oh my soul. Yonder come day, yonder come day. Yonder come day in my soul. Yonder come day, is breaking. Yonder come day of my soul. Yonder come day, is breaking. Sun is rising in my soul. And so, when would I use that? I use it on Martin Luther King weekend. Junior, when we're talking about looking forward to a brand new day, in terms of justice. but I also use it on All Saints Sunday, when we're remembering the saints and looking forward to the day when we're all reunited that evening. So, this is compliments of the publisher. Just keep it, or give it back and give it to somebody else if you don't want it. The next category I've listed there, and I know this is a kind of pedantic, but I don't know any other way to walk us through it, so we're going to take the walk. Take a hymn and then maybe at the end of a phrase create some harmony. So we're going to go back to this example, come Christians join to sing. Come Christians join to sing, Alleluia, Amen. If I wanted to, and I could just add maybe 2 notes of harmony at the end of the phrase. Would you all sing it as it's written right now? Alleluia, Amen. And again, I'm going to add 2 notes. Alleluia, Amen. And all I'm going to do is add, instead of going down here, I'm going to go up and up to here. So, over here, would you take the up and up, and would you all take the original melody? Ready? Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Amen. 2 notes is enough for our first harmony. And guess what? In this particular hymn, you get to do it 3 times, because that musical material happens A, then there's a B section, and then come back to A at the very end. Now, what would happen if some of us, when we were singing here, stayed on that note like we did the first time, and then did this and divided 3 ways here? Everybody sing the first line. We're just going to hang on to this. Everybody else keeps going, and then divide for that. Ready? Here we go. Come, Christians. Come, Christians, join to sing. Now, it sounds a little strange for men to be in the bottom part because we get that extra octave in there. We're going to drop out right now, okay? Would you choosing, come Christians, join to sing, and just park there for right now? Hallelujah, amen, go up, and take the original tune. So we can hear what treble voices would sound like. And, come Christians, join to sing, hallelujah, amen.
I forgot which part I was on.
Would you take, sing, and that becomes our 3-part chord. Or whatever they're singing, sing. I want you to hear it one more time with a beautiful chord there. Ready? And come Christians, join to sing. Hallelujah, amen. And it comes close to the harmony that we use for global music. You know that with the 5th on the bottom, often the tune in the middle, and the 3rd above. Okay. So, I just got the high sign saying, cut it off in 5 minutes. Just kidding. But we do have to go. So I just want to take you through 2 more things. Just look for creating counter melodies sometimes along the way, or adding a bass harmony. I'm going to give you one more example as our party today, and it's the whole notion of counter melody and descant, okay? And the example I'm going to use is not on there, but I've written it on the board. So I would like to invite all of us for right now to sing this counter melody here, but we're going to sing the first sentence 3 times before we conclude with the second sentence. So here we go. Amen, 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 amen. There's our bass part, okay? Over here is going to be our descent. Hallelujah. 3 times again, and then we go to the last one. Ready? And hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Okay, those are 2 counter melodies. How about all of you take the top one, that's kind of coming, would you all take the bottom one there? Hey, hey, or 1, 2, 3, 4. Amen, amen, no matter what I sing, you stand your parts. Ready? Here we go. Thank you for doing the experience. Thank you so much for working with our children. Blessings on all your parts.